donation box.
Double ecker on the
Lots of things. And I found
Right, that's the way you learn. It does no
Bharat?
good
what?
to wonder, especially if you can get an answer.
And early television, you are how it.
As you might guess, it also has many offspring. See, these are shoots from that plant, and you just stick it in the water, and it develops little roots and so on. Guys of an earlier time, you know. These are that's old stuff. They would, before there were
Ice
refrigerators,
harvesting.
there were ice boxes. And people would actually harvest the ice out of the lake during the winter time. And
You can see the photo.
yeah. And I was fortunate enough when I was your age to live next door to the local ice man
Oh,
and different dairy products.
dairy products.
Post office, no, you know, wonderful
office.
display. People would go in, as you well know, and then they would, see, here's when it's open. And then they would have their own box and
Few box.
mail that way.
Maybe.
What is this?
Yeah, well, I suppose that if they came in and they were going to mail something, they could just, and it was already stamped, they just slip it in there, say. Otherwise, the postmaster would come and say, what, anything today, you know, or whatever. Yeah. Oh, and this, of course, is the old village blacksmith, and every town would have a blacksmith.
This is railroad
and
ticket.
they would make-
Ticket punching. This one. Railroad ticket punching.
Yes.
I know that. Still I remember.
And it's a cart.
That's a devoted
Bus reservation.
railroad display, railroad tickets, and railroad lanterns, and everything like
The
that.
signal, they used to show this one signal
Yeah.
in the railway station platform. Then based on that they stop or go.
This, of course, they would make things for horseshoes for the horses, and make it out of iron and then shape it in different ways, and then this is the anvil, and that would be very hot. This is to blow more air into it, and this is just a kind of a temporary. Always important. Look at that door. Isn't that something?
Wow.
Yes. Well, people might go to a carver and ask them to make something special, like maybe or over the top of the room or whatever. So these people were very. And for fishing, oh yes. Oh, this is interesting because they used to, of course, tap trees
Apple syrup, honey.
for the syrup. And
Syrup
make
alakade. That's it, sir.
make the maple syrup,
Hello,
and then, of course, the
Bee
honey from the bees. Yeah. Life was different. People did things a lot, you know, they did a lot
Yeah.
of things themselves instead of going to the grocery store. Here we have fruit growing.
Fruit.
All kinds of things here. And finally down here, we have
street stores
a lot of the,
right?
this is a lot of devoted to farming. Oh, look at the size of that rooster.
Hostar.
Back then there are lots of farms.
Yeah. Even now that in villages there will be farms.
Lots of farms.
Yeah.
This is interesting, boys. They would put this over the back of horses, and then these fringes would keep the flies from bothering you, see? So when the horse was walking, it just swing like that. Oh, yeah. And then, oh,
Eggs hatching,
carrying eggs.
egg boxes.
This is one area that I enjoyed teaching about because I enjoyed teaching about the American West. Look at the different types of barbed wire. See all that? Now normally you look at barbed wire and it looks like something like this, but there were, when they first came out with it, a lot of different types of barbed wire. So it's become a collector's item.
Okay, so they used it for planting?
Can you do what?
Like, they used to, like, planting?
Yes, yes.
Why don't they need to use, like, different barbed wires?
Well, basically, what happened was that at one time, the country was big, and they raised cattle, but the cattle were roaming freely on the land. And then the farmers who were planting things would come in and plant, wheat or corn, and the cattle would come into and trample. So what they wanted to do was to protect the farmland, and they buy a pair of shoes. You went to the local shoemaker.
Shoemaker.
And then the local shoemaker would say, well, let's see, what size foot is your foot here? We go, okay, about this. This is called a last. And then they would, you see this?
Yeah.
So they would put this onto a form, and then they would put the leather around it, and then with the nails and so on. This one, I don't want to take that off because it's got, that shoe is pretty well. But I don't care if you're talking about the tablecloth or glassware or this, it's all donated. And it's just wonderful to be able to have this stuff and have people see this is what they used to, do. Look at the umbrellas. Look at the umbrellas and the canes and look at that, guys.
Whoa.
Ooh.
Hold it.
It's
Sir,
Grab hold of it.
It doesn't look like an umbrella.
Well, you see, what basically it's very simple. And people would
in the
have
kitchen.
a cooking stove like this. And a wood box, and guys, that would be your job, see? You would have to go and get the wood from out on the wood pile and bring it in every day. Go ahead.
And also you need to collect buffalo chips.
Oh, well, you might. Yes, back that was, remember when we were talking about the barbed wire? That was what you found out on the prairie. Yes.
What is that? Buffalo?
Yeah, buffalo chips.
Okay, yeah.
Buffalo chips, yeah. Yeah, and this, all of these types of things, the cabinets and the spices and rolling pins. Yeah. This is called a pie safe. It was literally to keep little insects out from the food, you see. Now, remember, guys, when we were downstairs and we were talking about getting ice out of the lake?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is.
There was no refrigerator.
And then, of course, they put food in there, you see, or down here. On the bottom is a tray, and the ice would melt, and the water would go down, and then they would take that water out periodically. Ice box.
I have a question. Like, Does the ice melt in the icebox or?
Yes, it would. We used to call a pot-bellied stove. This one is a little more fancy. But it would be nice and warm. Often, we would not, my family was not wealthy, quite poor. And so we'd let the fire go out in the evening, go to bed, stay real warm. Next morning, my dad would get up and start the fire in the stove, and we'd grab our clothes and race down and stand next to the stove and try to stay warm. Oh, it was so different in those days. Right there, you have a pump organ, and people used to provide their own entertainment. They would pump and make sounds, you see, or like a piano, and then sing along. And then,
Yeah, this side.
yes, and here we go. This was invented about 125 years ago by a man named Thomas Edison.
Thomas
All right.
Alva Edison is a great.
Also developed the electric light bulb and the motion picture and about 1,000 other things, inventions. So he was an American inventor. But this is called a phonograph, obviously. Today things are so different nowadays. What
See.
But this thing had a sound of its own.
Oh,
I'm
does it
stopped
still
for a
work?
second. Huh?
Come from the card.
Oh, record. Notice the little grooves? That's where this, you know that, don't you?
Yeah.
Still, we have in India that one. At my
Then
work.
you wind it up. It has a kind of a control system. Put the needle on.
Oh, still working.
And the sound comes through the needle and through out here. There's no volume control, unless you you point it in a different direction or stuff a sock in it. But it was a simpler time. It was so different. This is mechanical, not electronic. This is not pure sound. A lot of scratches and things of that nature, but it's got a sound all of its own. I enjoy that sound so much. It was a simpler time. Not as many words, and the world was not quite as uptight. You know what I mean? People today pretty uptight. Adults are. Kids aren't.
Thomas Alva Edison.
By that man, Roland Emanuel Larson, out of a stick. Pick it up.
Pick it up, Thor. From
So you
Look at
make
that.
chains?
It's no, not the cane. That's called bass wood, and bass wood is somewhat softer. And it doesn't have a grain. By grain, like stripes in a wood. That's a grain. Well, this obviously is easier to work with because if I tried something like this, I'd cut off 3 or 4 fingers, and then I would break it in no time at all. But look at what that person did. Isn't that something? Yeah. And we would say, well, boy, that must have taken a long time. Remember when we saw
Right.
that door downstairs?
Right.
Well, it's the same type of thing. It's a different person, but it's the same type of thing. That was the occupation. Person, that was what they did for a living. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is what your great grandmother used to use for cleaning clothes. Or maybe at the riverbank and slapping them against a stone. But eventually this was developed, and then that was developed. This is a rocker and a winding in, and then eventually they put a motor on it. See, look at that. That's an early washing machine. Believe it or not. And another one, another one. And behind you, up above, is your bathtub.
Bathtub.
But when I was born, and I was younger than you guys, but we used to drag the tub into. What is that? What? Oh,
Like
yeah.
that's used for cleaning.
That's right. That's a rug beater. Yeah. Yes. Vacuum cleaners. Ta-da. See this? The kids will look at this and this. Oh, that's for shopping and No. See the way this was used, and this would be your job probably. The clothes would be in a tub, like this. And you see how the water would be pushed out, and it would cause a motion, and that's what, of course, keeps the clothes get the clothes clean. Oh yeah. Oh, look at this. You can handle that. Huh? Soap. Homemade soap made from the fat of animals. Fat of animals with lye, a certain caustic stuff that is added with it, and then it's hardened. And it becomes soap. Homemade soap. Yeah, homemade soap. Yeah. So interesting. Let's go down in a swamp, but it is a Native American dugout canoe. Just a log hollowed out, and it goes back, I'm trying to see. Oh,
1750?
yeah,
1950.
1750.
1750. Oh, it's probably 300 years old.
Oh,
Pretty
okay.
close. Well, somebody decided they were going to collect old cameras. And this is, of course, one of the old cameras called a box camera. That's over 100 years old. And people literally would buy the camera with a film in it. When they got finished taking about 50 pictures, they would send the whole camera back to
Processing.
the manufacturer, and they would take the film out and develop it, and then send you a new roll of the camera back with a new roll of film in it. That's the way they did it until, of course, they reached a point where it was possible for people to put their own film in. And of course, then later you get pictures like this. And you get cameras like that.
And the pictures, they never smile. I know why, because then their teeth would be burly.
You're absolutely right. That's right. It's a nice display, but people would collect this for grocery store down there. But this is the young kids always refer to this as the gun room, because it's quite interesting. But the story on it is the fact that this is a collection by one person whose name was Kip Hale, and he used to own a place across the street called the Buckhorn, a kind of a recreational place. And there is a placemat for the Buckhorn, America's most unique cafe, and they had bowling alleys and eating places and so on. But he had a kind of an idea of the Western, he was an outdoorsman. That's a shot by Kip Hale, 1935, a buffalo. So he collected a lot of these guns. And then eventually, he and his wife reached a point where they were ready to retire and sold the buckhorn to a couple of people and removed most of his good gun collection, which had been displayed there. And then the buckhorn burned. You can see the pictures there, 1972, and the buckhorn one Saturday morning. The buckhorn is burning, the buckhorn is burning, and we all went down and shed a tear because that was what this town was known for.
Oh.
The buckhorn. And these, of course, had been in the fire, and you can see a lot of the wood stock was burned off, and etc. And these, fortunately, had been removed. Now, you guys remember something called the Pirates of the Caribbean?
Ooh,
The movie?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. These were pirates. Those are the pirate pistols that you would have seen. When I was your age, I discovered books about and stories about pirates. I read everything I could learn about being a pirate because I was determined I was going to grow up and become a pirate.
Fascination. Yeah. The stories.
But I mean, it's a fascinating collection of old guns, and you know, some of these go back. Look at 1766, 1768. You know, those a couple of 100 years old, 250 years old.
I have a question. Like, what caused the fire?
What is that?
What caused the fire? Is telling
What
Bakhan.
caused the fire? They said probably wiring.
Short circuit.
Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was so much, you know, because of the kitchen, their greases and everything. Once it started, it was gone. Yeah. But at any length, when in time, Mr. Hale was the president of this organization. These on display, and there's almost a kind of a history of the, you know, as time went by. Here's, you know, the kind of revolvers that they used in the West, the old Colt revolvers, and then of course you go into something more recent, into police, and then World War I and II, the Luger. And then look at these little ones. Look at this, guys.
Oh, is it really a gun?
See, look at that little one right there.
Ah.
Well, they even made pistols for ladies to carry in their purses. You see, that would be for you know, for their protection type of thing. There's one in here. Ah, there's the one. See that one? That's rather interesting because it's got a part of the handle that turns out and it carries. You got a picture. There was Mel Rettinger's pet. Lived in the cave south of the Pioneer Museum, right down here.
Oh, it was a pet?
So, yeah.
I thought, like bears live in north of Minnesota, right?
Yes, different types. There are a lot of different types of bears. You've got different types of bears all over the world, including pandas in China, and you've got
Koalas.
koala bear in Australia, and then you've got
And black
the
bears.
white polar bears, and brown bears, and black bears, and grizzly bears.
So this is I think Thorun. It is tamed. I think it's a pet bear, right? It is a pet. It was
This
a pet.
one was essentially, yeah.
It was a pet.
If you want to have a wild bear as a pet, yeah. But he got it as a cub, and then of course it collection. Different types of things like arrowheads that were flints on the end of arrows, and then around on this side, of course, anvils or like hammers, you know, that type of thing. Yeah. We used to have this display over in another area, And it just was not really seen much. And then we have some people who wanted to put a different display over there. So this is over. Now this, boys, this is a loon. Loon, and this is the bird that is the state bird of Minnesota.
Zoom.
It's not like an owl, but it's a waterfowl out on the lakes. And there are a few in this area now, so, you know, maybe next summer you will hear it. And the lawyer's office, so many things. There's so much, it just impresses me so much that everything here was donated. I mean, it's just, you know, old ballads. You used to go into a store and you tell the grocer, you know, we
Grocery
need
store.
13 pounds of sugar. Well, you'd go to a barrel and scoop it out and weigh it and give it to you that way. And then later, again, 125 years ago, they developed the cans. And that's what I like about this display. Those are original cans. Look at this. Here is something called Long Lake brand apples. There used to be a lot of fruit grown in this area, and some of it was shipped into the farmers market in Minneapolis where they would sell it fresh, or they would put it in cans and sell it that way. Yeah. This is a, sorry. This is a coffee grinder. Put the coffee in here, and then turn the wheel, and then it would come out down there. Coffee grinder,
Weighing machine.
scale. Often the grocer was the local postman. Person would come in, say, "Oh, Henry, any mail for me today?" And Henry, where did Henry go to? Henry used to be behind the, we got a different, they moved that mannequin. The guy used to be behind the grocery store. And anyway, Henry said, "Oh, let me see. Oh, yeah, you got a card from your Aunt Matilda. She's down in Florida having a great time." Well, they used to say, the old saying was, in a small town, everybody knows everything. There are no secrets, you know. If there's some scandal going on, they'd know about it. If there was something that was going to happen, they'd know about it. But part of it was the postmaster, part of it was the beauty shop, because the people would like to gossip.
This is cash box.
Wonderful, another pot-bellied stove, as you can see. You know about checkers?
Checkers.
Do you play chess yet?
Yeah.
Do you? You probably know more about chess than I do. I've tried it and I just can't get the hang of it. But I think you have to kind of make sure you stay with it. Be careful now.
Long legs.
You could well imagine. Now, you could hear that all over town.
Yeah.
That was the school now. This room. Oh, there we go. This room is
Swing
what we
machine.
call our domestic room. This
Domestic.
is all associated with things in the house, and including, of course, making your own clothes, repairing a sewing machine, which was again a part of that great inventive period, and a lot of lace, quilts. So it's a type of thing that that probably the mother of the house would be more familiar with. Making a rug. This is a
Rug गलत है अच्छा सर.
Yes, it's an old loom. Now, did I mention the QR?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. another QR there that would tell a little bit about the story of making the loom. And I presume this one probably would still work. I don't know, that would part the way they would do this. They'd have a shuttle, and they would open it up like that and throw the shuttle through and catch it over here, and then go the other direction, and then they would throw it back. So basically, that's the way that they would weave. Oh yeah, homemade dolls. Just so many things, so many things. People would, and then of course they would form the thread on that, yeah.
Cotton and even that, all these things they used.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wool and cotton.
Yep. Now this loom is a kind of a catch-all. A little bit of this and a little bit of that. Toys, children's toys, of course. Fascinating. And here you've got dolls, not handmade, more expensive. And then, of course, our schools right over here. This is what, earlier schools were like. Desks, yeah, the teacher up there. This is a record player like the one that we've already heard. So this is we'll turn this on, but
can you change the volume?
Yeah, but yeah, we can change increase the volume. It's electronic.
Oh, okay.
you can tell the sound is a little bit better on this than the other one, which was more expensive. And the music is a little bit different too. This is called jazz, early jazz, which was a great American music. American jazz. And then I want to show you something that I had not seen, because before they made these platters, the earliest Victrola used a cylinder like this. And here you have a picture of Thomas Alva Edison. And I have another picture of him over there. But these, I can't get that one out. This was called, the earliest development was on a cylinder like this. And again, you see the little lines in there? That's where the sound is. Well, the one thing about sound, for example, if I talk like this, well then the sound waves are like this. If I talk like this, they go like this. So those are sound waves, and that's it, and vibrations, and that's exactly the way we hear. Your eardrum picks up vibrations, and and that's what's on here. And Edison was smart enough to realize that. So I'm going to show you first over here.
This one will work?
Yes, I'll show you that in just a second.
So is it electronic?
No, it is not
Come and see this.
mechanical, I think.
Oh, here, by the way,
Oh, careful, Tarun.
here is Edison.
Wow.
Thomas Alva Edison. Now, the interesting thing is, he was practically a grade school dropout. So was he was curious about everything. And he grew up in, I think it was in northern Ohio, but he he took a job on a railroad, and he got his ears boxed one time, and it ruined his hearing.
Hearing also, yeah.
But it didn't
Because,
ruin his
that,
curiosity.
he
The man invented about 1,000 different inventions in his lifetime. And one of them, of course, was the electric light, and this is the phonograph.
Phonogram.
And this is a number of years ago, a lady called old Edison phonograph in 1892. Would you be interested in having it? Oh, I said, oh yes, I think so. Now here's the story, guys. Edison had a laboratory, a working laboratory. They made different things, and he had a number of people working for him. He drew something and he brought it into the shop, and he said, Kersey, make this. Oh, Kersey said, well, Mr. Edison, what will it do? It will talk. So Kersey made a machine like this, except that it didn't have this device on it because it had a simple crank and a cylinder. And they put, and then a megaphone like this, and then they put a piece of foil around the cylinder and set a needle on that, and it had grooves in it. And he starts turning the crank and talking into this speaker. Now, guys, I'm going to tell you the first words ever to be recorded. And remember that all of the history of the world, we have no idea what people from an earlier time sounded like. You know about them, but what did they sound like? What was their voice like? Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was what? Those were the first words ever recorded. Take the needle off, crank it again. Mary had a lamb, its fleece was the first words ever spoken and recorded. And from there, of course, you go to the cylinders and the flat disc, and then you go to
CD.
Ultimately, of course, to the, what do they call it, MP3 or
MP3,
something. Yeah. All of that type of thing. And you get a little thing now that's got 1,000. Now, let's go over here. I want you to hear this.
Yeah, I'm excited. I did not see this one.
This is the cylinder.
Yeah.
And until a few years ago, I had never heard an Edison cylinder phonograph. What did that sound like? See that? It's wound up, incidentally. Okay. And it goes round and round. And then this is got the needle. And I'm going to lower this needle down onto the cylinder. And it's going to touch on those grooves. Now listen. When I first heard this, I was absolutely astounded how sharp and clear. The sun shines bright on my old Kentucky home. But there is nothing, I mean, this is just the natural sound coming out of it. There's nothing to amplify. I can't control it. Oh, Kentucky home, far away. All right.
Excellent.
Wonderful machine. Yeah, but it started to change life. People started to have a little. You look in there. This is a little bit like an early, what do I want to say? Like an early television. It's an entertainment type of thing.
I did not see this one.
Photography was developed in the 1840s.
Wait.
Daddy showed it.
And, this is
Taj Mahal is
are from the area of northern Italy and southern France. And my favorites are not here. I haven't even seen this one.
So we can change the. I'm really excited today.
This doesn't have few pictures of it. We need to have a few more pictures for use. Well, you can see. Come over here. That way, we want to all the bright glare. But then we have some wonderful old instruments that this display is just not satisfactory to me, and I don't know whether or not eventually this will be changed. All right. Then we had the American native, the Indian that we saw over in the other room. It used to be against this wall, but it was doing nothing. It was being lost. And a couple of the guys said, we've got so many veterans from World War II, and they're leaving the scene. So we really ought to have a display for some. This goes back to the American War between the states, the North and the South. Civil War. Then there is, of course, something from World War I over here, and then World War II, and so on. Good to meet you. And all of these things, of course, are artifacts from World War II. This was the first president that I ever knew, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The only president we ever had elected for more. Glasses, again, somebody's hobby, and somebody pointed those out. Oh, Harry Potter, Harry Potter. But the ones that I think are fascinating, look at that. You go back here, somebody named Benjamin Franklin. That was the type of glasses that he wore. Look at that. 16th century. That's almost 400 years ago.
Wow.
Glasses are very simple and come a long, long way. Splint for broken, all kinds of.
I have one question. Which one?
Yeah.
Like, which one is like the Harry Potter?
The dark ring. Yeah,
Oh,
that
okay.
the dark ring. Those are like Harry Potter's. Yeah, but there's a story in every part, everything. Here is, incidentally, boys, we just looked at Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the President of the United States when I was
It's
just a boy.
donated.
And he had polio, and he was confined to a wheelchair for the remainder of his lifetime. Well, he had a great voice. Oh, he had a great voice. Yeah. Oh, well. All right.